Have you ever wondered how much time we spend pretending to be the versions of ourselves that others expect? Waking up in the morning, putting on clothes that match our identities, saying things that fit our roles, doing what is expected. A princess is supposed to be graceful, a bookworm should be obedient, an athlete must be strong, a misfit should remain silent, and a troublemaker is expected to rebel. We shove ourselves into labeled boxes and pretend that's all there is to us. But what if one day, 5 completely different people were locked in the same room for 8 hours? What would happen? When those labels are temporarily peeled off and the masks gradually removed, what would they see? In 1985, director John Hughes answered this question with a film. That film is called The Breakfast Club. John Hughes, this name was like a secret code for American teenagers in the 80s. He made films like 16 Candles, Weird Science, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, capturing with perfect precision the chaos, sensitivity, and energy of adolescence. The Breakfast Club is often considered one of his most iconic works. Looking at the cast now, it's truly star-studded: Emilio Estevez, Molly Ringwald, Judd Nelson, Ally Sheedy, and Anthony Michael Hall. At the time, they were all quite young, yet already showcasing remarkable acting skills. Here's an interesting little detail: it said John Hughes wrote the script in just 2 days, and the film's shooting schedule wasn't long either, as most of the scenes take place in a single library. Sounds simple, right? But it's this minimalist setup that gives the film the tension and power of a stage play. The story unfolds on a Saturday morning at a typical high school in Illinois, USA. 5 students are punished for various reasons and sent to detention in the school library for 8 hours, from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. supervised by Assistant Principal Richard Vernon, a rigid, stern man full of prejudices against the students. These 5 have almost no connection with each other. Claire Standish, the school's princess, is beautiful, wealthy, and popular, living in a world of shopping, parties, and social circles. John Bender, the school's troublemaker, wears a shabby denim jacket and constantly curses. His world is one of rebellion, anger, and the shadow of domestic violence. Andrew Clark, the athlete, is the star of the wrestling team, muscled and ambitious, living under the pressure of training, competition, and his father's expectations. Brian Johnson, the school nerd, excels academically and wears glasses, living in a world of exams, grades, and college applications. Lastly, Allison Reynolds, the school's misfit, is quiet and withdrawn, always dressed in black, living in a world almost no one bothers to step into. At first, they are like 5 worlds that refuse to mix. Claire looks down on John, seeing him as crude and vulgar. John mocks Claire, thinking her fake and pretentious. Andrew and John constantly butt heads and seem ready to fight at any moment. Brian tries to mediate, while Allison stays silent the entire time. Vernon assigns them an essay titled "Who Do You Think You Are?" and then leaves the library. But 8 hours is a long time, and silence can't be maintained indefinitely. John provokes Vernon first, getting himself into more trouble but also cracking open the tension. They begin to talk, argue, and eventually share. Claire admits that she's actually unhappy, her friends are hypocritical, and her parents only care about her appearance and social status. Andrew reveals why he ended up in detention. He bullied another student in the locker room, taping his butt cheeks together, all to please his father and prove that he was tough. Brian breaks down crying as he confesses he brought a gun to school because he got an F grade and couldn't handle his parents' disappointment. Allison finally speaks, saying she didn't actually do anything wrong. She was just bored and wanted a place to escape because nobody at home cared whether she was there or not. At this point, you realize they are starting to see the truth behind each other's labels. The high and mighty princess turns out to be vulnerable and lonely. The angry troublemaker hides pain and yearning. The strong athlete deals with pressure and fears. The accomplished nerd struggles with despair and helplessness. The quiet misfit also longs to be seen, to be heard. They smoke marijuana together, dance in the library, chat like friends, and pour out their feelings like family. Those 8 hours become a special moment in their lives. Yet as detention ends and they prepare to return to their usual routines, one question arises: come Monday, when they meet in the hallway, will they acknowledge each other? Or will they pretend to be strangers? Will the labels resurface and the masks come back on? This question is one the film deliberately leaves with us. Now let's talk about the first core topic: who decides the labels? There's one particular detail in the film that stuck with me. When Vernon first steps into the library, the expression on his face already tells you he's judging them. He knows whose daughter Claire is, remembers John's disciplinary record, and recognizes Andrew as the wrestling team's star. He doesn't even need to talk to them to define them. The princess is a princess, the criminal is a criminal, and the athlete is an athlete. But where do these labels come from? Did they choose them themselves, or were they forced onto them? Brian has a particularly heartbreaking line. He says he has been told since he was a child, you need to study hard, come first in class, get into a good university, and succeed. His parents never ask him, what do you want? What do you like? His entire life has been defined by the label nerd. When he gets an F, he feels his world has collapsed because a person who gets an F is no longer a qualified nerd. Andrew's story is similar. He says his dad constantly pushes him to win, to be stronger, to never show weakness. So he bullied that student in the locker room, not because he wanted to but because he thought that's what athletes are supposed to do. He lives within his father's expectations and the label of athlete, yet has never asked himself, what do I really want to be? This reminds me of a concept in psychology called stereotype threat. It states that when we are labeled, we unconsciously start to act according to the label, even if that's not who we really are. You're a nerd, so you must be socially awkward. You're an athlete, so you must be simple-minded. You're a misfit, so you must be weird and antisocial. Over time, these labels become self-fulfilling prophecies. We stop living as ourselves and start living as the versions others expect us to be. But the most powerful part of the film is when these 5 characters begin to truly talk, discovering that behind every label lies a more complex, rich, and authentic self. Claire is not just a princess, she feels loneliness and confusion. John is not just a criminal, he yearns for love and understanding. They are all real people, not representatives of some type. So then comes the second question: if we tear off the labels, what will we see? There's a scene in the film where they sit in a circle, taking turns to share their deepest secrets. The scene is filmed in a quiet, understated way with no music, just the voices of the actors. Watching them speak, you can see the expressions on the others' faces, first surprise, then understanding, and finally connection. Allison says her parents don't care about her at all. She could disappear for an entire day, and no one would ask where she went. She delivers this line calmly, almost as if stating a fact. But you can feel the profound loneliness within. Claire's eyes fill with tears as she listens and says, I thought I was the only one who felt lonely. Turns out, we're all the same. This is the power of empathy. When we set aside prejudices and are willing to hear each other's stories, we realize that everyone is going through their own struggles. The seemingly perfect princess has unbearable pressure. The seemingly tough athlete hides vulnerable fears. The seemingly angry criminal carries unspoken pain. John Hughes once said in an interview, "My generation attracted too much attention, while these kids are struggling to find their identity. They've been forgotten." That's why he made The Breakfast Club. He wanted people to see these labeled teenagers, not as types, but as human beings. Human beings with pain, dreams, fears, and hope. But here's a deeper question: after tearing off the labels, how do we define ourselves? At the end of the film, Brian writes the essay on behalf of the 5. He says, "Dear Mr. Vernon, we accept the fact that we had to sacrifice a whole Saturday in detention for whatever it is we did wrong. But we think you're crazy to make us write an essay telling you who we think we are. You see us as you want to see us, in the simplest terms, in the most convenient definitions. But what we found out is that each one of us is a brain, and an athlete, and a basket case, a princess, and a criminal. Does that answer your question? Sincerely yours, The Breakfast Club." This passage is fascinating. It says that each of them is all these identities. They are not confined to just one label but are the sum of all the labels while transcending them. A nerd can be brave, a princess can be fragile, a criminal can be gentle. They are complex, contradictory, and ever-changing, and that is what being human really means. But can this kind of authenticity be accepted by the world outside? The film leaves us with a very open-ended conclusion. They formed connections on that Saturday, but come Monday? When they return to school, their social cliques, their routines, their labels, will they still remember each other? Claire and John start to develop feelings for each other, but will she admit it in front of her friends? Andrew and Allison are drawn to each other, but will he risk being mocked by his teammates to be with her? This is the harshest part of growing up. In a special moment, we see our true selves and others' true selves. But returning to our daily lives, societal rules and peer pressure often pull us back into our roles. We want change, but change requires courage. And courage is often the scarcest resource. Director John Hughes is clever. He doesn't provide a clear answer. He doesn't say they will definitely greet each other on Monday, nor does he say they will absolutely pretend to be strangers. He leaves the choice to the characters and to the audience. Because it's not about right or wrong, it's about the kind of person you want to be. Do you want to live within others' expectations or live as your authentic self? Do you want to stay safe or take risks to change? Do you want to let labels define you or define yourself? These questions aren't just for the 5 teenagers in the film, they're for all of us. We live in a world filled with labels: good employee, good student, good child, good parent. We are bound by various roles and sometimes forget that beneath these roles, there is a real me. There's a scene where the 5 of them run down the hallways of the library together. In that moment, they are no longer a princess, a criminal, an athlete, a nerd, or a misfit. They're just 5 ordinary teenagers finding some fun on an otherwise dull Saturday. No labels, no roles, just freedom and joy in that fleeting moment. Maybe that's what the Breakfast Club truly wants to tell us. The real self is not a fixed label, not a single identity. The real self is fluid, multifaceted, and constantly rediscovering and redefining itself. What's important is not what you are labeled as, but who you choose to become. Speaking of this film, we can't forget the iconic theme song "Don't You Forget About Me," performed by Simple Minds. In the closing scene, as the 5 leave the library, John Bender walks across the field and raises his fist high in the air, a moment perfectly complemented by the song's melody, creating one of the most memorable shots in cinematic history. Don't you forget about me, don't forget me. This lyric beautifully echoes the movie's core theme. That Saturday, they truly saw each other and understood each other. But once it's over, will they remember this experience? Or will everything go back to how it used to be, living under their respective labels? Keith Forsey, the song's creator, said his inspiration came from a scene in the film where a shy person and a bully form a connection, but only when no one is watching. This fleeting, fragile connection is the essence of teenage friendships, a brief moment of deep resonance with someone, only to revert to normal the next day as you pass each other in the hallway. So this "don't forget me" isn't just a plea, it's a yearning. A yearning to be noticed, remembered, treated as a real person, not just a label. There's another classic line from the movie. As they discuss why they ended up as they are, John says, "You see us as you want to see us." In the simplest terms, in the most convenient definitions. This hits hard. We often use the simplest ways to understand others. He's a nerd, she's a queen bee, he's a delinquent. It's convenient because we don't have to spend time truly getting to know someone. But it's also cruel because it strips away their right to exist as a complex individual. When we start truly seeing, listening, and understanding, we realize everyone is richer, more interesting, and more worth remembering than we initially thought. The Breakfast Club has been out for nearly 40 years, but the issues it explores remain just as relevant today. We still live in a world of labels, amplified and solidified by social media. Who you are is often defined by your photos, your bio, your likes. We spend so much time crafting a perfect image, yet rarely have the chance to present our authentic selves. But like those 5 students in the film, when we let our guard down and show our vulnerabilities, that's when true connection happens. The pain that makes us feel isolated may also be the bridge that leads to shared understanding. So next time you meet someone labeled a nerd, a rich kid, a socially awkward person, an influencer, ask yourself, am I seeing who they truly are or just how I think they are? Am I willing to take the time to learn the story behind the label? And when you're labeled yourself, ask, am I living as my true self or playing the role others expect? Do I have the courage to tear away these labels and explore the more complex and authentic parts of me? There are no standard answers to these questions. But asking them is already the start of change. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to like and subscribe. If the film reminded you of an experience or sparked a thought, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. Well, that's all for this episode. Whatever time you're tuning in, I wish you a good morning, afternoon, or evening. This is Delusion, and we'll see you next time.